Welcome back to another episode of Novus News. I'm Stephanie Wolff, PA and CEO of the Novus Center here in Studio City.
And I'm Jada Pasquale. I'm the registered nurse here at the Novus Center. And today we will be talking about how you can reverse cellulite using an integrative approach. So the first thing that I want to talk about is dry brushing. And dry brushing is just a firm bristle brush that we brush towards the heart, starting from the toes. And what this does, it's going to increase that circulation. And circulation and lymphatic drainage, as you know, is where the buildup of that toxins and the waste products in the blood. And as we're brushing towards the heart, we're actually circulating so that we can remove all those toxins from the body. And how this helps cellulite is because cellulite is, impeding blood flow because of the fat cells that are just not allowing the blood to enter to the dermal layer. And so when we're dry brushing, we're stimulating that movement, right, to just reduce that amount of cellulite. And so, dry brushing can be done before showering twice a day for 5 to 10 minutes. And, it's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, I think you can get the brushes on Amazon for anywhere from like $10 to $20. And, not only does it help with lymph drainage and blood flow, but it exfoliates the skin too.
Yeah.
So really, you should be doing it anyways. It just kind of helps tighten up the skin and, gets all those dead skin cells off and kind of brightens and lightens up the skin. Patients really kind of feel a little bit firmer with it. So, don't be scared of dry brushing. I know to me, when I first saw it, I was like, that looks like a horse brush.
Yeah, it feels a little weird the first time, but trust me, you'll love it.
Now, one of the second things that we also do here in the clinic is we use a cream, and it is a non-peptide cream. So I wanted to be specific in that because we do use a lot of peptides here in the clinic, but this is a non-peptide. And it's a combination of something that's called glycyrrhetinic acid and aminoalphalin. And when you put these two together, they actually will help with something called lipolysis. And lipolysis, as we've said before in the previous episodes, is just breakdown of fat.
Right.
So there was actually a study that they did using this cream where these patients used it twice a day over a series of 12 weeks, and they lost up to 12 centimeters in their waist circumference. Yeah, so, one of the easiest ways for me to explain it is something that's called a lipotropic shot or a fat burning shot. Basically the same thing, but in a cream. And, one of the other things that this cream does, which I think is important, is it also regulates your glucose and lipid metabolism. So they're also using it to treat obesity and fat loss or, weight loss too, because it's going to help regulate that sugar control. Right. So, it's a little bit more in detail on exactly how these two medications work together. But I think what's important is knowing that this cream together does reduce the lipolysis, or it's basically like a fat burning type of cream.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is the red light therapy. And red light therapy, everyone hears about it and they're like, what is that all about? So it actually promotes wound healing and skin rejuvenation. And one of the things that is kind of very similar to what dry brushing is, it just promotes that blood flow. And basically what a lot of the shockwave therapies and dry brushing is doing is just
increasing that blood flow.
Yeah.
And also something else that is interesting about the red light therapy is it's going to strengthen the blood vessels.
Yes.
So, when we're doing shockwave therapy, we're promoting something that's called angiogenesis or the regrowth of new blood vessels. And, something that we'll tell patients is when you're growing new blood vessels,
it starts out micro. It's going to be very small, thin, easily breakable.
Yes.
And red light therapy, when you use along with shockwave therapy, you're thickening that blood vessel so that you get optimal blood circulation.
Flow. Yeah, you're getting more blood flow to the tissue. And as we talked about in a previous episode, the more blood flow that you can get to the tissue, the more you're feeding that tissue, which means the more collagen production you're going to have to that tissue.
Yeah.
And what is collagen to tissue? I always say, think about a baby.
Yes.
You look at a baby's face and they have so much collagen and so much blood flow, which is why it's so kind of like thicken.
Yeah, you
And as we age, think about it. Our skin begins to kind of drag and it gets really thin, and that's why we get wrinkles, is because, again, we're not getting optimized blood flow to that tissue and we're not feeding the tissue.
Right.
So the red light therapy really does strengthen those blood vessels so that you can optimize your blood flow.
So then we're going to be talking about exercise and nutrition, and I know you guys hear about this all the time, but it does help reduce cellulite, okay? And the bottom line about nutrition and exercise is just reducing the fat production.
Correct.
Right? And so with exercise, I recommend you guys do a lot of aerobic exercises. So that means running, hiking, walking, anything that gets the blood pumping.
Yes.
The heart pumping.
Yes.
Just because the heart is obviously the biggest circulation that just moves around the body.
And exactly, so, something to think about, I'll tell patients, is if you can visualize, let's just say you go for a hike or a walk and you can feel your heart pumping, what I want you to think about is all the blood that's circulating in your body. It's full of this rich, oxygenated blood with all these minerals and vitamins that feed the rest of your organs. So that's how you're feeding your brain and your kidneys and, your tissue. So exercise is great. And, not only that, but it, again, kind of going back to red light therapy, it strengthens the blood vessels.
Yeah.
So you're really exercising your blood vessels, again, to optimize the blood flow.
Yeah.
And,
when people are not moving as much, the blood begins to thin. It just doesn't want to work the way it normally works.
It almost becomes stagnant.
Yeah.
And so does the lymph drainage, right?
And then when we're eating unhealthy, when we're eating a lot of processed foods, sugars, starches, all of that, then we're just causing that resistance because of the plaque buildup that's in those blood vessels.
And all that inflammation too, right? So anytime you have inflammation, now you're telling the body there's damage. Now you're creating scar tissue. So, diet and exercise are you guys, that should just be part of your daily routine. And then, of course, the last thing, that you can do is optimize your hormones. We did talk about this in the first episode, but both estrogen and testosterone are potent vasodilators. And what that means is they open up the blood vessels, again, to optimize blood flow so that you can feed the tissue. So, as you start going through perimenopause and menopause, your estrogen and testosterone start to decline, which means that the blood is no longer flowing the way that it was supposed to, which means you're no longer feeding the tissue, which means you're no longer having collagen, and it's the same story over and over. So,
I think the bottom line is
blood flow. So that's it for today. Join us again when we return on Novus News.